He used to grab my hand, kissing it, tell me he loved me. I love you, Dad. Sorry, Dad. And I still feel him.
How do I feel as a mother? Like I've let him down.
But it's not you who let him down.
No.
You went to the right people for help.
We did go to the right people for help, but it wasn't there.
He was a salt-of-the-earth young man, and the systems failed him, and we don't have him now.
Every day, Jack and Poppy Papagiorgio visit their son's final resting place.
We care and we loved him very much.
It's hard, isn't it, Jack?
Yep.
In the past 2 years, any hope of moving on with their lives has vanished. They're traumatised by the death of 27-year-old Theo and haunted by the thought of his life being cut tragically short.
They failed their duty of care. They failed. They didn't listen.
They are convinced that Theo's life could have been saved if it were not for a broken mental health system.
That is not the health system we need to have. We need to have a health system that we can trust.
Theo grew up here on the family vineyard in the Riverland. Like his dad, he was a passionate vigneron.
Theo had some pretty big plans. That's why he bought this place.
He did. When he was a young age, and probably 8 or 10 years old, and he used to tell us, "Mum, one day I'm going to have a vineyard, and the rows will be as long as the eye can see." The dream was always to have a vineyard.
He never shunned a hard day's work and learnt the craft of winemaking from his father. They even came up with their own label.
He was following through with it.
Yeah, he was, and he was totally dedicated. He wanted to be successful.
But like so many, Theo suffered from depression, which reached crisis point in January 2016.
He was in a terrible situation, holding his head. "Dad, let me go. Can't do it anymore." You see this young man in pain.
In just 8 weeks, Theo's parents say they witnessed their son's condition deteriorate, despite 3 emergency hospital visits and pleas for help.
Here we were, a caring family, father and mother and our son who wanted to get help, approaching the hospital.
They were heading for the emergency department of the Berry Hospital, the region's largest mental health facility.
Did not admit him to hospital. This young man is under the management of mental health. He's coming to emergency, he's asking for help, and I don't admit him to hospital to review his medication. We cannot accept that. We demand a change in the system.
For Jack, who spent 10 years serving his community on the hospital board, this refusal to treat his son at his most vulnerable point came as a shock.
Right now, the people of South Australia should ask, should we trust the health system?
So you don't trust the health system anymore?
I don't.
Instead, they were told to visit their GP, who increased Theo's medication.
We were told maybe he was unlucky because it fell in the Christmas New Year period where the staff weren't on hand. That's not an answer someone needs to hear.
They went back to the hospital only 3 days later, but were again turned away. So they decided to travel to Adelaide to visit a psychologist. There too, Theo met with rejection.
He told Theo that he dug himself in the hole.
You're pretty scathing of that advice. You felt it was completely inappropriate at the time.
He gave that man no chance. That's why till today he's not willing to cooperate in the inquiry.
Less than a week later, Theo made the decision to take his own life.
You reckon I ever forget that? Never.
It was a nightmare, it didn't even seem real.
Former Health Minister Lisa Vlahos held an inquiry after his death, spearheaded by South Australia's former Chief Psychiatrist, Dr Aaron Groves.
Verified what we thought from the very beginning.
Dr Groves' investigation concluded there were serious clinical failures which impacted Theo's diagnosis and treatment.
People at that initial contact who did not have awareness of mental health problems and the severity that perhaps Theo was facing. Failure.
He also completed a confidential report with 7 recommendations which they are urging Health Minister Peter Malinauskas to take up.
I have read the report and it's one of the most damning reports that I've read in my time in Parliament.
Australian Conservatives' Rob Brokenshire has been a close friend of the Papagiorgio family for 20 years.
We've seen a reduction of health services in most country areas across this state in the time of this Labor government, and when it comes to mental health, it's totally inadequate. Totally inadequate. It's a broken system.
He says their brave decision to speak out proves the young man he knew was abandoned by the health system.
I want them to admit openly before the election that there is a major problem with mental health in this state, and it must be fixed.
For Theo's family, there has been no public admission of failure, but they feel a coronial inquiry is essential to having their questions answered.
If you think Jack will go away, Jack will be back. And we'll keep coming back till I get answers, because we want this to prevent any other family to go through what we're going through.